Brother Maine, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Peace, peace. I'm a author and I'm somebody that's into the scriptures that try to help clarify and put all of the records back together the way that they've been broke up so that people can get better clarity on what they teaching and to see how they all connect.
Cool. Tell me more about your position and your book. What Spiritual Dope is the title, correct?
Yes, spiritual dope is the title. This might be a little hard to see here, but Spiritual Dope is available on Amazon. And in the book, I put lessons in the book, but I combine scriptures from a lot of different books. Like I said, I got the Bible, the Quran, the Keys of Enoch, some of the Nag Hammadi scriptures, some of the Hindu ones from the Bhagavad Gita. And I combined the scriptures from the different books and put it into lessons to show how the spirit is speaking the truth through all of the books. It's just we've been separated by the religions.
Cool. Tell me more about like what your position is in general. As an atheist, I don't believe in any spirituality. So what do you think is the message?
I'm also a teacher of the scriptures. I'm not a pastor or preacher or anything. A teacher of the scriptures. Which cool. I was once like where you was at, really, because stuff at one time it didn't make sense to me. So I just left it all alone. And then once I started learning a certain area of it, and I wanted to see what it was really about or whatnot. And it reeled me in, and I started tying the different books together, and things started making more sense. Because Christianity, like it never really made sense to me. But once I started studying the teachings in Egypt, and I started studying some of the Hindu things, and that led to me studying Islam and other just sections of scriptures. And once I read the books, things made more sense than just listening to like a pastor or imam or priest or anything. And I found that the power in the books is not in the religion.
Well, what is the power in the books?
It opened something up in you that a lot of us don't know that we got. It taught to your spirit. And it got a lot of the history. There's a lot of history as far as the Bible and the Quran got more history, where some of the other books got more straight teaching, such as the Keys of Enoch and the Hindu books and the Egypt or Kemetic books. They got more teachings versus history.
Like what would be some of the teachings that can open up your soul?
Well, such as like in the Spiritual Dope book, the first lesson in here is about conception. So it go into different scriptures showing how we was made spiritually or whatnot. Which you yourself, you a spirit being. It's a spirit man inside of your flesh that we interacting with. Which I mean, I understand the atheist point of view because I didn't believe in spiritual things at one time. But now I look into everybody like Luciferian and Satanists. I used to watch all type of people getting their perspectives, and it helped me understand things better because the whole thing was to get an understanding of what it was all about. So I went all around. I never really stuck to one area. So I mean, it helped me connect the people on different sides because I understand the different avenues. I'm not biased towards one or the other.
From my perspective, I don't think there is a spirit being inside of me. Why would we think there is one? Like, it seems like all the evidences were just brain stuff.
You said brain stuff?
Yeah.
So as far as like, even as far as when you dream and stuff, where did them things come from in your perspective?
The brain.
All right, so what is the brain tied to? That gives it the ability to maneuver in different realms. Because your body go to a different realm. Because like sometimes you'll have a dream and you'll wake up sweating, which means you interacted somewhere, but your flesh didn't go nowhere because you woke up back in that same in your body, but you were sweating. So something had to take place in another realm or dimension to make your body react to what went on in your mind?
Well, I think it was just your heart rate increase. So like if you're having a scary dream, your heart rate increases when you imagine something happening or when you dream about something happening. The parts of your brain that activate are the same parts of the brain that activate when you're actually experiencing it. So like if you're running away from a lion, the parts of your brain they're going to activate is going to send a lot of cortisol and stress, and it's going to shut down your immune system, and it's going to increase your heart rate. And when you dream about being chased by a lion, the same parts of your brain activate, which increases your heart rate and causes you to sweat. And so I don't think there's like another realm there. I think it's just your brain is activating the parts of your body that cause you to sweat.
Well, even if your brain activating that part, I mean, I can understand that. But the things that you can do in your dreams, you don't think that's tied to something else? That's just wouldn't technically, being that that's not taking place when you're awake in the flesh, it has to take place in a different realm or a different dimension. Even though it's in your brain, it still take place in a different outside of the flesh, right?
I don't think so. I think it happens inside the visual cortex where it's where you see stuff, and the Broca's center where you hear stuff. So
Yeah.
the parts of your brain that control your sense experience are being activated, and those things cause your experience of the dream. And so I think it's just different parts of your brain that are doing all of that.
You ever studied the astral realm?
Have I studied it? Sort
Yeah,
of.
you ever looking into stuff about astral realm and people that be talking about astral traveling and all of that?
Astral projection, yeah.
Yeah, it take place inside of the mind.
Yeah.
So the astral realm is inside of you. That's why Jesus taught the kingdom is within. That's the astral realm. It's a metaphysical aspect of the teachings that people don't get them aspects of the teachings, but it got to do with the body and everything's inside of you. It's not nothing external, it's internal. But it's on both sides in reality. So I mean, like you said, the brain is the apparatus, and the keys of Enoch is called the Deca Delta system. It speaks on how the brain is connected to the astral realm, and that's how you can astral travel, like you heard people say, and all of that.
Well, I don't think people are astral traveling anywhere. I think they're just imagining doing stuff. So, like, if I imagine myself in Harry Potter in the castle casting a spell, I think that's essentially the same thing as astral projection. You're just imagining it. I don't think you actually go anywhere.
Yeah, it's power in the imagination. If you ever get into studying like such as the hoodoo teachings and different things, it's the power of the mind. The mind. That's why Jesus said you got to come to me as a child, because you got to have an imagination to access true abilities that you got within you. Without that, you can't access.
Well, why should we think it's more than just imagination and not just our brains making stuff up in our imagination?
Well, you got control over it. That's part of, you can have control. You gotta put time into using it to gain your abilities more thoroughly. But same way people heal with their hands and everything, their mind got to do with that. And it's their imagination had to play a part for them to be able to do that, to manipulate the energy and to shift it in different ways.
You said something about healing with your hands or something?
Yeah, how people can heal people with their hands. It's people that got healing hands, but their mind gotta be attached to it. Like you was just speaking on with the brain and the imagination. They gotta be able to see it in their mind using their imagination to be able to effectively do their work.
Could you, like, I've seen some scientists trying to find examples of the healing hands people, but haven't been able to find any. Like when they get tested, it shows they don't work. Do you know any who could like go
But
to a
but that's
doctor's clinic?
nah, that's the thing about the two different worlds or whatnot. You can't go to people that don't believe in these things and get them to test and to believe and to show that it's real. But it's people that got the abilities to do these things. But you can't go to mainstream. That's just like mainstream doctors. They don't deal with herbs for healing. They deal with medicine because it's two different worlds. But it's people that heal with herbs, every type of disease and everything. But the doctors, the mainstream, they'll tell you you can't do it.
Don't you think that if healing hands worked to cure people, that doctors would probably use that?
Nah, because they'll lose money. It's just like healing people with herbs. The reason they don't allow you to heal people with herbs because it'll destroy the monopoly they got on the industry because it'll actually heal the people versus having them keep coming back for medication.
So like before capitalism, back when we were doctors that weren't specifically trying to make money, like there's a guy who invented penicillin and he just gave it away for free. If let's say that corporations discovered how to use healing hands, don't you think they'd try to use that to make money? Like say, hey, we can heal you with healing hands and that works just as well, and you can pay us lots of money to do it. Don't you think they'd use that to try to make money if it worked?
Nah, the spiritual gifts can't be used to make money. It's not for that purposes or whatnot. The industry wouldn't promote it because then it would show that the industry is a fraud and that they've been getting over on people all these times. That's why you ever heard like Dr. Sebi? You remember him? He passed like 2 years ago or whatnot, but he was healing people with all type of herbs, just natural healing, healing every disease from AIDS to cancer to herpes, whatever you had. He was healing everything. And he wasn't the only one. There's another guy named Dr. Africa. He was doing it. And now it's a young brother named Yaki. He doing it too. He healing people with just the herbs, spiritual things.
So if there were herbs or something that could cure HIV and cancer, then you could make quite a lot of money off of that, because there's a lot of people who are dying of those things and who would very much like a cure and would pay lots of money, like Magic Johnson, very, very rich basketball player, has HIV. If there were some kind of herbs that could be proven to cure him, I'm sure he would pay quite a considerable amount of money to get those. So
Dr. Sebi said Magic Johnson came to see him, but it's not going to be mainstream because if you think about the pharmaceutical industry, look at all the money they'll lose if they couldn't keep pimping people with medicine. People wouldn't have no reason to go to them. They'll just go to the natural healers and bada boom, that's it. But the industry would lose so much money. It's just like with insurance and it's a connection there that them companies got a stronghold where they don't want to lose that supply of money.
Yeah, but what about the other companies like news organizations who want to promote the truth? And if this would actually worked, they would just put it on the news, and they're not tied to the medical corporation. So if
it's
it
in the
worked,
underground news, ones that's not mainstream. The mainstream news though they don't promote it, but it's behind the scenes, smaller media sites that do talk about some of that.
Why do you think the mainstream media doesn't talk about it?
The mainstream media controlled by big corporations for money. It's all about money with them. Just like politics. Politics all about money. It ain't necessarily helping. It's about the money.
Well, mainstream media like posts things that are against the corporations. Like they show corruption in corporations and make lots of things they go against the corporation. So I don't think they're owned by the corporations.
Yeah. They paint a narrative on both sides. I'm talking about as far like CNBC and all of the big ones or whatnot. They never tell people that you can be healed naturally. They don't it's certain things that they don't go into or whatnot. They keep that stuff hidden.
Right, but I think the reason they do that is because it doesn't work. They've tried it. Scientists have tried it. We've tried testing it because we want anything that works. We want to use to make life better for everybody. And so if it works,
true.
What?
That's not necessarily true. It's two different worlds. Where it's like science is one world, but it's a clash when it comes to the money or whatnot. And it's like it's people out here that do this stuff, but they don't get no recognition from the mainstream. Just like when Dr. Sebi was doing it, he wasn't getting no mainstream recognition, but he had hundreds of testimonies. When he even had to go to court, he brought a lot of people with the court. They had to throw the case out when he said his mama made him put it in an ad in the paper that he healed AIDS because he knew that they would come arrest him for it. But he beat the case. If you never heard of him, it's just something to look into. Even Dr. Africa, he also passed a couple of years ago, but he was healing all diseases. And now it's a younger one who was their student, and now he's doing the same thing. It's the diet that they got people on. The diet is wrong, and that's what causes all of the sickness. If they told people what to eat properly, then people won't have all of these issues. People don't eat natural foods no more.
Well, so two things there. One is, how would eating properly kill a viral infection and stop cell mutations of DNA that cause uncontrollable reproduction of cells? That is what cancer is. I don't understand how eating properly could stop those things unless it can unmutate DNA in some way, which I don't think it can do. And secondly, if there's multiple governments and they're all competing to try to be the best government, they want to have the most money, the most power, and there's this thing out there, this technology that can heal millions of people and make them better at making money for the economy, it would seem like the government would want to invest in that so that their people could grow and spend more money and make more profit for the government, so they could have bigger militaries and more economic success and more people in the workforce. And so if this worked, it seemed like some government would want to take advantage of this to boost their populace, wouldn't they? Why is no government supporting this?
All of them are working together. It's a united front, and it keeps certain things hidden from the public point of view. And that's what's in a lot of these scriptures, that the atheists and the people that don't read scriptures, all of us wrote in there or whatnot. And then it's a science and all of the governments and everything. It's a key aspect that's been hidden, that they didn't took all of the indigenous ways of life, then been took from the people. And as far as eating habits, yeah, if you eat natural foods, your body can heal yourself. And that's the thing people don't realize. Your body got all the abilities that it need to fix itself, but you got to eat real food. The majority of the time, we eat science projects. That's all people really eat, is science projects. People don't really know that the only real foods is the stuff that grow off of the trees and grow out of the ground, off of vines. Everything else is a science project. If you eat science project, you're going to get cancer and all that stuff. And like when I was little, my grandma used to tell me, she said when she didn't see only people that cancer that she knew was lung cancer when she was little. She was like, but that was before fast food and grocery stores everywhere. They were just eating out the field, what they grew and everything. So it's like, I used to sit back and think on it. And then when I started getting back into looking at natural healers and reading different books on health, and then even when I was studying scriptures, it's a diet. The indigenous people had a diet where it's like that diet, it didn't allow for all of these sicknesses, diabetes, all these cancers and all that. It come back down to knowledge and understanding your body. You gotta have connection with the body, and that's what the whole knowledge of self thing is about. You gotta understand the way the body and the spirit and all of that work together. It's a spirit and all of the food that grow out the ground. It grow in the natural conditions. It's something in it that give it life. But the science projects, it don't have that. It's a difference. It's another side of life that the mainstream not teaching, because that's how they keep people sick. And when people sick, you can control them and make money off of it. But when people healthy, it's a whole different world.
Well, I mean, I don't think North Korea and China and Russia and America and the UK are all working together as a conspiracy. And I don't think that people in indigenous tribes died a lot, and they just didn't know why they died. They did have the diseases, they did have cancer, just nobody knew because they don't know how to diagnose those things. But we do have the super chat from Malavia. Look at all the people who have sued holistic healers and holistic companies for killing their loved ones and selling placebos. The Kenyan doctor who claimed to have cured AIDS was sued by multiple patients that never tested negative for AIDS. He was a snake oil salesman.
You always gonna have ones that's not true to what they do. You always gonna have them. That's just like preachers and everything. You got preachers that really don't know the scripture. You got pastors that don't know the scripture. You got doctors that's not necessarily good at what they do. They do it for the money. And when people do it for the money versus that's what they was born to do, you get a whole different, you get different results. When you got people that, because everybody was born with a purpose. if your purpose is to heal people naturally, nah, you're gonna be good at what you do because you're gonna put your time into your craft, and your spirit is gonna give you the abilities that you need to make it work. It's just like a true prophet. A true prophet don't have to go to seminary school or none of that stuff right there. Nah, all he gotta do is read the books, and the spirit is gonna give him the truth of it. Nah, all them things been set up for profit, and that was the people that don't study and go through all these different books, they live is a different reality. You see life differently. But that's the whole thing with with the spiritual understanding and everything. Everybody got a purpose. Everybody was sent to do something. But the world give people options on you can be this, you can be that. Nah, your spirit already pre-programmed for what you got to do and what you were sent to do. But the world take you away from that and tell you to fit in this box right here and fit in that box and do it this way and do it that way. But that's not the way that we supposed to operate. And then it's like, go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Well, Malavia mentioned in the comment he was referring specifically to the doctor that you were talking about who claims to have cured AIDS. He's saying that doctor was convicted.
Nah, he got off. He brought a whole lot of people to court. That's been verified that he got off, but he had a whole village healing tape. I knew some people that went to the village out there, just like with the guy now, like Dr. Sebi and Dr. Africa. They didn't pass. They didn't transition. But it's a young brother now, Yaki Awakened. He got a website. He healed all type of diseases, but all of them, the plant-based diet was the root for all of them, all of the natural healers. It's a plant-based diet. That's the beginning that you need for your body to get acclimated back to heal itself. You can't get healing results when you eating chemicals and all that stuff all the time. Nah, it go against the composition of your body. The first dietary law in the Bible was vegan.
Frank asks, I do think we need to learn to eat butter or not to eat butter, I think is what he meant. But I don't think it's the solution to cancer.
It's only not the solution because people ain't tried it. You never know till you try. And then if you talk to older people that they didn't have cancer because all they was eating was natural foods, it tell you right there. It's certain things that you process right there. Talking to older people, they didn't have all these different cancers and diabetes and all this stuff, but they didn't have all of these companies giving them science projects to eat all the time.
Oh, better. It says better, not butter. But there are lots of people who've smoked cigarettes like all their life and didn't get cancer. Do you think that proves that cigarettes don't cause cancer?
You said, do I think that proved that they don't cause cancer?
Yeah, there's lots of old people who smoked their entire life but never got cancer. Does that mean that talking to old people who have smoked proves that cigarettes are healthy and don't cause cancer?
No. It's always the people that can get around it.
So don't you think that could apply to the old people that you're talking about? So people who ate healthy and didn't get cancer, well, maybe that's not because they ate healthy, they just got around getting cancer.
Well, no, I was just speaking as far as the diseases that they had when the ones that grew up before a certain time period. I ain't saying that nobody got, I'm talking about as far as the diseases, where it's like diabetes and all of these diseases that ain't got more, and all of the new cancers that's constantly coming out now, whereas before we had all these fast food restaurants and before grocery stores had all of the processed foods in them. If you talk to them about the diseases that was back then versus the diseases now, it shows a difference. That's what I was saying.
Well, don't you think the difference is that today we can diagnose more diseases because we know they're there, and back then we couldn't diagnose them because we didn't have the ability to find them? Like, we didn't have microscopes back that far, like 200 years ago, or like we didn't have technology to find out what DNA was. We didn't know what DNA was like 200-300 years ago. So now that we do, we can discover these diseases, but they've always been there. We just didn't know. So if someone died a long time ago from cancer, they still had cancer. We just didn't know it because we didn't know what cancer was, right?
Well, that's the perspective for some people, but it's some people that they had the ability to diagnose all these things, but those people are not going to be put mainstream to be able to show that.
What do you mean? Because as far as I know, it was someone made a discovery to diagnose a new disease. They were pretty much always made mainstream.
That's the difference between the cultures or whatnot, where it's like we got people in our culture that did all that stuff, and there's still ones that still do all that stuff. But it's like the need for the medical, the science, and all of that stuff. If the scientists and everything can't diagnose how you do it, then to them it's not accurate, it's not true, it's not real. But even if you get into certain people, as far as like maybe what y'all would call witch doctors or something, it's people that can diagnose a whole lot more stuff than the European people think that they can diagnose, but they don't believe in that stuff. But we got people that can diagnose and heal all type of diseases without microscopes and science and all of that stuff, because the science is really inside of you. But the mainstream culture, they don't understand the way it operates, because and it's in all of the scriptures. It tell you who the ancient covenant people is in the Book of Mormon. But the ancient covenant people in the Bible, it say that the whole world and formed the conglomerate against them in Psalms 83. So the truth that they got is never going to get out to the mainstream. But that's how the Gentiles received their blessing in the book of Romans. Romans 9 and Romans 11. It say that they was going to be given their time to rule the world. And their perspective on life is a whole lot different than the ones that got put to the bottom, the original ones. And it's nothing against nobody, but that's just the Creator made it fair. He gave the indigenous people a time to rule, and then he gave the other nations a time to rule. And now we're coming towards the end of the cycle, and that's why the things that's going on. But we had all of these teachings wrote down, but people that don't study, they don't know what's going on right now. But it's ones of us that do know exactly what's going on right now, and it's in some of them other books. It's not in the other books. That's the thing about tying them together. It paints the picture more clearly of what's going on right now, even as far as what's going on in the earth with the sun and the solar flares. It's scriptures that speak on all that and how it was going to go down. As far as people starting to see more UFOs and all that in the sky, it's scriptures that speak on that and about them returning. And all of the movies, everything that's in the movies come from different books of scriptures. But people only know the Bible and maybe the Quran. They don't know all the other books of scriptures that's been hidden. And that's where a lot of these movies come from. But it's a cycle that we're on.
How do you know that they actually know how to prescribe these things and aren't just making stuff up? How do you tell the difference between imagination and reality?
Well, that's the thing. Remember I told you at the beginning, the spirit worked through the imagination. You got to have imagination to be able to use your spiritual abilities. But when the world teach you that these things are not true, it cut that ability off. Now you can't access it. And that's the whole thing with Jesus teaching to come out of the world, because the worldly system, it puts your spirit man to sleep. You can't access them abilities. They docile to you. And that's where you got people talking about junk DNA. And no, there's no such thing as junk DNA. There's no such thing as a body part that don't have a use. Everything was created with a purpose in mind. But the people that's ruling the world now, they're not the original people. So their understanding of spiritual things is different. But what's going on now, the cycle is shifting. The time of the Gentiles has been fulfilled and it's coming to an end. But it's in all of these books of scriptures, the Book of Mormon, the Keys of Enoch. It's a whole lot of books of scriptures, tie them all together. The Bible talk about put the different records together and it'll show you the truth of what's going on. But your spirit will verify that it's the truth, but you got to read it to be able to see it, to give your spirit a chance to judge it. That same brain apparatus that you talk about when you go to sleep, yeah, it'll start to give you answers and revelations and put things together for you. If you need to heal something, you can heal your own body, but your imagination got to be active and you got to have the will to control it, to go through your body to fix certain parts of yourself. But you can do it. It's ones of us that got the ability to do it. If something on me hurt, I know how to go through the astral realm to work on certain aspects of my being. And all of us got the ability, we just ain't been trained to do it. But that's what the world called witchcraft and spiritual things. But nah, it's abilities through the mind. The mind has been closed off due to the teachings of the world, thinking that it's either got to be this way or that way. It got to be science. No, it's a spiritual science that the world been missing. And that's what's coming back now.
Well, you said that there's no, or every part of the body has a purpose. What about vestigial limbs? Like there's sexual organs in dandelions, and dandelions don't sexually reproduce in that way. There's blind fish in Mexico. They have eyes, but they just can't use them to do anything.
There are
the
other
human
senses
tailbone.
When one sense closed, the other's enhanced to make up for it. Just because they blind, that's not stopping them from doing what they need to do. They still gonna be able to get it done.
Right, but they have eyes, so they can never see, but they still grow eyes. Why do they grow eyes? Because they don't do anything.
They do something. It's maybe that the scientists just don't know what it is that they do. It's no such thing as having an organ and that organ is just sitting there dormant. Nah, that go against creation.
Vestigial organs are a thing. We have those that they don't do anything. Like wings of flightless birds.
That's what I mean about science. Just like science tell you that you can't heal your body by eating natural foods. Nah, that's not true. That's just science is perspective. They don't have all of the answers, but the world been programmed to think that scientists got all of the answers. But it's people that know that's not true. If you read scriptures, it's people that heal all type of ways. That stuff not made up. It's history. But when the history changed, when the new culture took over, they covered up all of that. That's the hidden history.
So why don't the spirit healers go to like a cancer facility and just heal everybody there? Because that would work. That would just prove it, and no one could refute it at that point.
How much money would the cancer facilities lose? And all of those facilities need money to operate. If I go up in there and I start healing, nah, they're gonna put me out because I'm gonna put them out of business. I'm not saying me necessarily, but I'm just talking about as far as somebody that got those abilities. That will put that industry out of business. Just like cars, they got the ability to make cars that won't hit each other or break down and all that. But the insurance companies will lose so much money.
Make cars that don't hit each other. But like
I
imagine
it's on a whole nother level that people are not getting.
Well, so like there's doctors and nurses who work in these facilities and care about the people there. I'm sure they would be happy to have you save the lives of all these people there. They'd be very happy if you had a healer who could go in and stop these people from dying, and they'd be fine if the company fine, make the company go bankrupt. They'd be happy because these people wouldn't be dying, and that would be an improvement.
Would they be happy not to have a job?
Yes, if you could save all of the lives of all of these people, they would be happy to let you in and let you heal them. I don't think the doctors would be upset that you saved the lives of a bunch of people. They'd be very happy that you did that. Doctors are
even if you talk to doctors will tell you that it's no natural healing, that you can't heal with food. They'll tell you that you can't heal the body with herbs because that's not what they've been trained on. They've been trained to see things from a different point of view. So it's a clash of world. That's what I mean. It's a clash right there. It's a clash between the things that you can see and the spiritual things. People been programmed not to accept spiritual abilities. They think it's not real because that's the way that they've been programmed by society. But all of us in society ain't programmed that way.
Well, I think it's the reason that scientists don't think they work is because they fail double-blind studies. Like in order to tell if any medication works, you have to put it through a double-blind study. And then if it works, you'll see a result that's positive. But we don't see that in natural healings. It doesn't work. They try them all the time. There's an entire YouTube channel that does reviews of these called Healthcare Triage. And they test natural remedies and they just don't work.
Maybe it doesn't work for them because it wasn't given to them for that to be their purpose to do it. But it's people that know what to do with the herbs and the natural remedies. It's people that got abilities that the world don't realize. And all of them is not going to be on YouTube or somewhere that you can be seen. But you go to small islands, different villages or whatnot. Nah, they got medicine, man. And they don't hide the medicine that we think about when we think about the medicine that's prescriptions and everything. But it's still natural medicine men and healers in certain areas that don't use none of the stuff that we got over here in America. But they are effective at what they do, because that's what they've been called to do.
Don asked, how old do you think the world is?
It's not millions of years, it's just thousands.
Why do you think that?
Studying.
Studying
And from what the Spirit gave me. Is it all the different books of scriptures? It's a cycle. It's cycles that we on. Even the Hindus, the Kemetic people, the ancient Americans, all of them taught. All of them had a same system that they taught. It's just that the teachings ended up being split up. Just like the teachings of Buddha, the teachings of Yahshua, who the world called Jesus, the teachings of Krishna, all of them were teaching spiritual teachings, but the world split up the teachings in the different religions to separate the people. But all of their teachings were similar. They was all getting people back in alignment with the Spirit.
Okay, what about like cosmic microwave background radiation measurements, or geology measurements, or all the things that we can show, like formation of stars? Those happen in very long periods of time.
That's science again.
Yeah,
and that's the science that got people blinded to the other view of life. Whereas we on a cycle. It's not been millions of years that the Earth ain't been around billions of years. Just going through all of this. Nah, it was created to go through a cycle, just like the sun. The sun cycle is the reason that the sun, the solar flares, and everything going on with the sun right now. It was only
you mentioned the Bhagavad Gita, Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita. It says the Earth is 4.3 billion years old. Why do you think that's wrong?
Yeah, because that's not what the other books. You line the books up and you see the points that correlate between them. All right. And even when you get into some of Jesus or Yahshua teachings, he teach how when the other people took over in India, which the original people of India looked like the original people of America, which was the same as the original people around the whole world. Nah, they had a common culture. It's a book called One World Titarians. They showed that it was a common culture across the whole world. And when other people started coming in, taking over the areas, they started changing certain parts of the teachings and in some of Jesus' teachings. That's why he said he went to correct certain ones, but he would study with all of them. He studied with the Buddhists, he studied with the Hindus, he studied with the Egyptian people, but he was able through the Spirit to see what some of the teachings had got perverted.
Don asked, did God create cancer and other disease?
Nah, man did when he went against the dietary law. God gave man a dietary law. He said, let the plants be for your meat. But when man decided to go against that and start eating science projects and all type of animals, then he invited disease to come into him himself.
So do you think people lived longer before science?
Yeah, even in the scriptures, you see where people live hundreds of years. That's yeah. This science right here is recent. You gotta think about it. When the Europeans came to America in the 1500s, that's when all of this stuff got going, but people was living longer way before that. All this stuff is recent.
So why do the cultures that have the witch doctors and eat natural foods only and don't have any science have a lower life expectancy than America?
That's what America, they can tell you anything, but it's not witch doctor is an incorrect term, but that's what the world called them as. But
right, you can call them whatever you want. The healers,
the familiar terms or whatnot. But as far as like a lot of them now a lot of them eating the same thing that America eat. That's why in the Bible they talk about how Babylon made everybody drunk with her whoredom. America then got the whole world following a certain regimen. But before this, it was people living a lot longer. They didn't have all these diseases that they had. The people was more active. They was exercising more. They weren't stuck at a job doing certain things. It was a different way of life. It's all in these scriptures though. And that's the thing about being an atheist. You blind to a lot of the history, and you will see how it was people that had these abilities, and then something happened to where them people got rebellious. So once them people got their punishment, it was given for the other nations to rule the world. for a time, but it was only for a time period. And that time period is what's coming to a close now. And that's why I said in the end, everything is going to be revealed. And now a lot of stuff is coming back into the light that's been going on for so long.
Well, so like say 300-400 years ago, when people there was no science-based food back then. We didn't have science-created food back then. It was all natural. But most people didn't live past the age of 50. Why is that? If they only had natural food and there were still witch doctors or healers or lots of those kind of people, why is the life expectancy so much lower, like half of what it is today, 300-400 years ago when we only had natural food?
It depends on the area and who was ruling at the time also. And what the people had, the way of life that it was at that time. And then when you study the scriptures, they talk about the curses that came on us for how we was when we were in the world. All right. And as part of our punishment, it said the life expectancy was going to drop. All right. The conditions on the earth started to change because the earth, everything is connected. That the insects, the animals is a connection with it. And the way now the people, they got disconnected from everything else, they don't realize what you do to the animals affect the earth. And what you do that affects the earth, it affects you. It's a cycle. Everything is connected. The insects, the animals, the moon, the stars, the ozone layer, the atmosphere, the dirt, because you know the animals, what the animals eat also got to do with the soul. So it's a cycle. Everything and on the earth is connected. But once you start throwing off one aspect, it throws off another aspect, it throws off another aspect. And now, like you see all the animals and everything dying off, and how the earth is going through the earth heating up. Global warming is a natural occurrence. They talk about it in the scriptures. But people eating animals, their lust for animal flesh is adding to it coming quicker than it would. But we'd have been disconnected from the spirit of life. So we don't see how everything is connected. It's a unity in creation. And once people got disconnected from the unity in creation due to identifying with the flesh, it threw off all of the cycles. And what it brought was death.
Don asks, so God allows disease but gives us the cures. Why?
I don't understand the question. Man brought disease when he violated the dietary law. But also man has the ability to heal the diseases. God gave him the insight. The spirit gave him the insight on how to heal.
Well, I think the question was like, why didn't God just prevent the diseases? And then
because he gave you free will. So if you want to go off and eat whatever you want to eat, instead of eating what he told you will keep your body healthy, then you got the free will to do that. So now you got to use your free will to find a way to heal yourself. That's free will.
But can't I have free will to eat burgers and not get cancer?
No, because you're going against the laws of nature. And when you go against the laws, your body was created from nature. That's why only things from nature can heal the body. That's why the Bible said the body was created from the dust of the earth. The dust is symbolic of the elements. Everything that you eat that come out of the earth got the elements to put back into the body to keep it operating at optimum efficiency. But when you want to go off and eat dead foods such as flesh, dead body parts, you're inviting disease into the body. But at the same time, the spirit will give you a way to heal your body so that you can fix yourself back up. But those that's disconnected from the spirit, they don't have that ability to receive that insight. So they result to just listening to science and other people tell them, take this, which they just experiment on.
But I thought, like, when we were designed for nature, it's our fault that cancer came about because we didn't do that. Why couldn't God have just designed nature where we can eat burgers?
I think people understanding that God is false. God is not a man. The Bible teaches you in the book of John, God is a spirit. And them that worship him must worship in spirit and in truth, because there's a spirit in all of creation. God is not just a man sitting up in the sky somewhere that's just watching over creation. Nah, God is a level of consciousness. It's a multi-dimensional aspect of beings. It's not just a man sitting nowhere. Nah, it's a collection of spirits that make up the spiritual realm. And they all got jobs to do, just like we got to carry out down here on the flesh.
Did they create the world?
Yeah, they created the world. And that's how everything in the world is connected, because it's connected through the spirit. The spiritual things was created before the natural things.
So couldn't they have created it better where there isn't this cancer?
It wasn't no cancer at one time. Cancer came in as a result of fallen consciousness. But now that the consciousness is arising, you're finding out ways to heal it. But a lower level of consciousness, you don't know how to heal yourself. You don't know what to do. So you go around looking for blaming cancer. And I see people blaming, oh, God for cancer, this, that, and the third. Nah. He said, I gave you dominion. Dominion means you got the ability to rule over everything, including diseases and everything else in creation. You're supposed to be able to fix that.
Well, I mean, like, couldn't the gods have created the world so that we could eat burgers and not get cancer? Why didn't they just create the world that way?
You can eat them. You just can't eat them every day. You gotta eat them every once in a while. All right, you eat them every once in a while and go back to your plants and herbs the rest of the week. Say you eat a burger once a week. All right, you're all right. But once you get to the point where you need flesh every day, that's a lust right there. That's a lust to feed your carnal man. Nah. And that's what's gonna throw disease and problem into your life. It's because you can't control what you put in your mouth. That's why they say we gotta have self-control. But when we overindulge, we invite disease to come on due to our ignorance. But we've been programmed that way. So it's just learning, reversing everything that we've been taught, to know that what we've been taught to do bring about death. We're supposed to eat to live, not eat to die. You are what you eat. If you eating death all the time, you invite death into the body. But if you eating plants and living foods, they got a spirit of life within it. Yeah, your body gonna thrive.
But why couldn't the gods have just made it so I could eat burgers every day and not get cancer?
Because you're going against the laws of nature.
But they wrote the laws of nature, right? So they could have written the laws of nature differently so I could eat burgers every day, right?
It's for you to adjust to the laws of nature, not for the laws of nature to adjust to us. That's backwards. Nah, nature was here before man. That's why you study the order of creation. Nature was created first. Then man was sent in later on. So you can't go against Mother Nature. Nah, that's your mama. She take care of you. You don't try to tell her to change things up. You in violation. But she would give you the intelligence so that you can heal yourself, though, and get back in alignment.
Well, why couldn't the gods have just made it so that all conscious agents could do what they wanted?
You can. That's free will. You can do what you want to do. You don't have to follow suit. You just gonna have to find a way to fix yourself back up. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you desire to do.
Without the cancer. So why didn't the gods design the world so everybody could do what they want without getting cancer?
Cancer is a recent thing. The world is thousands of years old. It won't know cancer for a long time. But that's the thing. We've been trained wrong over the last few hundreds of years. All right. So all of these diseases came about because we in violation of the dietary laws, which that's where all the diseases come from.
Yeah, but the gods could have made it so there could never be cancer, right? So we could do all the science we want and do all the food we want and never ever get cancer. They could have made it so like we could all be free to live how we want, but never get cancer ever. Why didn't they do that?
Cancer is just one thing, and they gave you the ability to heal it. If you got the ability to heal it by changing your diet, why not just change your diet for a couple of years? Let your cancer go away, take some herbs, and then, I mean, by then you really shouldn't want to go back to eating the way that you used to. But if you do, you can do it again. You got that free will.
Okay. Malavia says Dr. Arthur Obel was sued for selling Pearl Omega as a herbal cure for AIDS that he sold for hundreds of dollars, despite a huge study into Pearl Omega proving it did nothing.
That's what I mean about false healers, just like false prophets. You got plenty of people that's just out here trying to make profit. They just want to make money. But that's the thing. It's just like all these pastors out here. They making money. They not feeding nobody's spirit. They not telling you what the scripture is truly about. They're not telling you who the people are the scriptures. They're not telling you none of that. They just making money. They just working with the system. That's the whole thing. It's always going to be a false and a true. But you got to use some discernment so that you can see who true at what they do and who is a fraud, just trying to make money. That's the whole thing with Jesus against the Pharisees and Sadducees. Yeah, they was teachers of the law and everything, but they was violating the laws of the Creator. That's why he was against them. He was against churches. Jesus won't with churches. Nah, he was against that. The churches, it was the body of the people that followed the truth. That's who the church of Christ is. It's not a physical temple. The Bible says God don't dwell in temples made by man's hands. Nah. But it also teaches in Corinthians, know ye not that ye are the temple of the living God. The spirit dwells inside of you. God is a spirit. Your spirit, man, is connected to the Creator. But we've been disconnected from that. So we're looking at things outside of ourselves to try to find the truth and the answers, but that's backwards. That's wrong.
Frank asks, ask him about Esau, E-S-A-U. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, Esau. Esau is the twin brother of Jacob. All right. And Esau, some of the teachings teach that Esau is different from the Gentiles. All right. The Gentiles is the people that took over and running the world now. Esau is not the Gentile nations. Esau is Jacob's brother. All right. Esau looked like Jacob.
Gotcha. Martin asks, would you be willing to use the scientific method to prove your ideas are true?
How can you use science to prove spiritual things unless you're using the spiritual science? Spiritual science, we believe in science, but we don't believe in it from the perspective of mainstream science. Nah, their views is contrary to the spirit. That's why they try to heal with things that don't have nothing to do with the spirit. Herbs got a spirit inside of them. They try to heal with medication that don't have no spirit of life within it. So it's a clash right there. They don't accept natural things that got spirits within it. They try to put their own concoctions together and think that that's how they gonna cure all these diseases. But you're not gonna cure without the power of the spirit.
Well, to answer your question, the way science tells the difference between things is it makes novel testable predictions. It says, if this method will work, we'll be able to predict in the future something's going to happen, and then we'll test that in the future. And if it does happen, then that's evidence that our method is correct. And so science makes future predictions, and if the future predictions are confirmed, that shows that the scientific method was correct. And so in order to use the scientific method to prove your model correct, you'd have to make future predictions and use your model to try to confirm those future predictions.
But that's the difference. We don't have to do all of that. We know the past, present, and future is all simultaneously one within the astral realm, the realm of the spirit. We don't have to go off of testing things this way for the future and all. Nah, we know it's all connected. It's all simultaneous. That's the whole thing. You get into some of the other scriptures that it teach you. Nah, all of this is one. The past, present, and future. That's how God in the Bible, the book of Isaiah, God told the ending from the beginning. Because in the spirit realm, ain't no such thing as the time. Nah, all of the events go in a sequence, but nah, we don't have to test things the way that mainstream science do. Nah, the spirit don't operate that way. The spirit operate like the luminaries above. How they just go round and round. Nah, it's a difference.
Frank asks, do you consider yourself a Gentile?
No, we're not the Gentile nations. The Gentile nations is the ones ruling the world now. That's why Jesus said Jerusalem will be trampled down until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. Jerusalem is symbolic of the original people. It's not talking about the land over there. Nah, the Jerusalem that's trampled down is the original people. The Israelites that it said was going to be punished for a while, and that the inheritance was going to be given to the Gentiles. The Gentile nations. If you read the Book of Mormon, it clarifies a lot better who the Gentiles are. And it talk about how the Gentiles was against God's ancient covenant people and how they trampled them down, but it was only going to be for a certain time. But he allowed them to have blessing too.
Brother of the Flying Man asks, the Bible says not to eat shellfish. Where does it say not to eat beef?
The first dietary law was God said, let the plants be for your meat. After that, man's lust took over. All right. But the first dietary law is the original. Ain't nothing like the original. The original law is what you got to be on for your health to stay intact the way it is. All right. And if you remember in the book of Exodus, when they was eating manna and they started lusting for flesh, what happened? God killed all of them.
All right. Creep Fighter says, do you believe in the book of Nah?
The book of Nah. Which one? What? I ain't found that book yet. I got plenty of books of scriptures. I got a whole lot of scriptures on scriptures on scriptures, but I ain't seen that one unless he's trying to be funny. The book of Nah, like, nah, that ain't true. But nah, I ain't sure what book that is.
All right. Perfect asks, way back when people died of consumption, how is it better if it is known by a different name?
I don't understand the question. What is consumption?
I think
give
it
me
means,
a different term.
I think it means like in the past, people died of the same things that we have today. They were just called something differently. So like cancer today was called something differently back then. Appendicitis today was called side disease back then. And so the diseases that are discovered today were also existed in the past. They just didn't know what they were, and they described them by like their symptoms.
All of the diseases started coming about when man went away from the dietary laws. That's the whole basis when it comes down to the diseases. The diseases of the flesh got to do with the things that you put in the flesh. If you don't put certain things in the flesh, you're not going to get certain results. And then you got to remember, the things that you eat affect your eggs and your sperm. So as you keep creating kids and your diet is horrible, you weakening the DNA structure of the seed that you're producing. So it allowed the generations to get weaker and weaker. But it's also a spiritual DNA that people don't realize, that it come back around and it has the ability to change your body. But you got to eat the proper things and renew your mind so that it can be activated.
Okay. We've been going for about an hour. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your time. Do you want to give any links or references where people can find more about your work?
Yeah, you can get the spiritual dope. It's on Amazon. And then I got teachings on my YouTube page. It is the same thing, Brotha Maine, the same way it's wrote right there. I got teachings on there where I combine all of the books of scriptures and I put the scriptures on the screen. It's not just me reading it. I put it on the screen so people can see it. And I tie all of the different books of scriptures together to show where all of the scriptures is speaking to the people. It shouldn't be no division as far as Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, the Kemetic people. Nah, it's one spirit that resonate through all of the teachings within all of them. So what we doing is putting the records back together. And that's where people, or they can, if you want to email me, is mainebrotha@gmail. It's backwards. So it's mainebrotha@gmail.com. But yeah, come check out some of the teachings on the YouTube page. All right. I was called to do this. So it's different than what you're going to get from the other teachers of the world that just teach from this book or that book and tell you not to go into this or that, like they teach in seminary and Christianity and all that stuff. Nah, we combining everything to bring the light back to the forefront.
Gotcha. Thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you later. Have a nice day.
Appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely.
Peace.